Watch right now on the Front News Project. Pokrovsk and Kupyansk, meat grinder assaults by the Russian army. The Ukrainian armed forces are eliminating the invaders. Exclusive footage. Hell in Ternopil. Russia is killing adults and children. This is real genocide. Long-range Flamingo and Neptune missiles strike Russian military targets. A blackout awaits Moscow. Fiery, intense, and blazing frontline footage. Watch it right now. Greetings. Vladimir Timoshenko here with you, and we begin right away with the most terrifying news. Hell in Ukrainian Ternopil, dozens dead, including 3 children and more than 70 wounded. In the early hours of Wednesday, November 19th, Russia launched another massive combined strike on Ukraine. And yes, it was Ternopil that found itself at the epicenter of the Russian terrorist attack. Our colleagues from the television news service will tell and show you more about this horror in detail.
Russian missiles and Shaheds attacked residential buildings at 7 in the morning. In this building, the occupiers destroyed the top 4 floors.
The sound of the Shaheds is like a mosquito. At first it flies separately, then it gets closer, and when it falls you can hear that a drone is dropping, flying down. The rockets were also very loud with their characteristic whistling sound.
The rescue operation continued all day. The number of victims kept rising. The people under the building aren't talkative. They pray that their loved ones are alive.
I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know. They're on the 6th floor, but I see that their section is intact. Well, where their apartment is.
Is there any contact with them?
No, there isn't. I just came to see my sister, but I stepped aside because my phone rang.
Are all your loved ones safe?
Yes, everything's fine.
Can I talk to her?
I don't know whether she'll be able to speak at this point.
Nearly 200 rescuers were working at the site of the collapse. Among them were dog handlers and psychologists. There are more than 20 people whose relatives can't reach them. Among them is a 20-year-old man. After several hours, rescuers find him among the rubble and try to reach him, talking to him constantly.
The rescuers keep in constant contact with him. As you can see, they are constantly working up above. Unfortunately, at this location, we can see that the structures from the 4th to the 9th floor have been destroyed.
And here is the moment of an incredible rescue. The young man who was trapped for half a day is alive. Ambulances are standing nearby. Medics are taking away the injured. This is another building that was hit by enemy fire. You can see that they're still putting out the fire here, even though 5 or 6 hours have passed since the strike. There are also dead and wounded here. While some are clearing the rubble in search of people, others are removing debris and covering the windows with plastic sheeting.
Private entrepreneurs have come together in groups of 4. A locksmith, a carpenter, an engineer, whoever knows how to work with their hands.
What are you doing right now?
We're covering the windows. We took some plastic sheeting and are covering the windows to keep it warm.
The industrial warehouses nearby were also attacked. There's a cloud of smoke over Ternopil. People have put on masks. The concentration of harmful substances exceeds the norm by 6 times.
All residents of the Solnechny neighborhood must keep their windows closed and not go outside unless absolutely necessary. All emergency and rescue services are working here on site. Right now, residents need plastic sheeting, building materials, and shelter.
The stalls of a small market near the houses have been destroyed.
All the goods are damaged, everything is broken. Further down, we have clothing. Most of what we have is cosmetics. All glass items, perfumes, electronics, everything is shattered.
Are you not going to open, or will you still try to work?
No, of course we won't open. Where would we go?
The elementary school, just a few dozen meters from the bombed-out apartment building, was also damaged.
The windows and doors are damaged.
Were the windows blown out?
Yes, the windows in the school were blown out, 20 windows.
And the Shaheds? The missiles were flying straight into a densely populated residential area. All schools and kindergartens in this residential area canceled classes and switched to remote learning. Due to damage to the heating system, the neighborhood was left without heat. But after lunch, new air measurements no longer detected any harmful substances, only an increased level of combustion products.
And now an analysis of the current situation on the long-suffering Pokrovsk front line. The bloody rampage of the enemy army continues here as well. On the Pokrovsk front, since the beginning of the day, the occupiers have attempted to advance on the positions of Ukrainian units 55 times. The aggressor operated in the areas of the settlements of Shakov, Novoe Shakovo, Pankivka, Nikanorivka, Chervony Lyman, Rodinske, Mirnohrad, Novoekonomichne, Rivne, Pokrovsk, Novopavlivka, Novonikolaiivka, Filia, Dakhna, and in the direction of the settlement of Hrishain. Fighting is still ongoing in 4 locations.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Yes, Pokrovsk and Kupyansk continue to remain at the center of hostilities. At the same time, just think about it. The armed forces of the Russian Federation are using the civilian population in Pokrovsk as a human shield. This is evidenced by intercepted Russian radio communications. And in Kupyansk, the Russian army still hasn't managed to secure its so-called criminal success despite various propaganda stunts. Here are the details. Pokrovsk played a cruel trick on the occupiers. While the enemy threw all its forces into a desperate attempt to take control of the ruins of the city destroyed by the Russian army, the Ukrainian armed forces launched a counterattack 200 kilometers to the north in Kupyansk. The enemy forces suffered huge losses there, reports the Ukrainian command, and were forced to retreat.
The enemy was cleared out on the northwestern outskirts. They're not there anymore. And that's a huge achievement.
In fact, the Ukrainian armed forces have cut off the Russian invaders in the northern part of Kupyansk from their main supplies of food, cannon fodder, and ammunition. Next, according to Commander Fedorenko, his unit and adjacent units began identifying the locations of the remaining Russian sabotage groups and clearing them out. As of now, the operation is almost complete.
If you open a map that more or less accurately reflects the current line of contact, you'll see that the enemy forces have been pushed back quite significantly from the northern outskirts of the area. And what does that mean? The farther we are able to drive the enemy military forces away from the northern outskirts of Kupyansk, the less space they have available to send their sabotage groups into the city itself.
But unfortunately, the Ukrainian armed forces cannot boast of such brilliant successes on another of the hottest sections of the front near Pokrovsk or in the city itself. Russian assaults there do not stop day or night. It seems the Kremlin has thrown all its forces into taking the city. Nevertheless, despite all efforts, the Ukrainian command notes that our defenders are heroically holding the line.
The situation in and around Pokrovsk is extremely difficult, but at the same time we're still somehow holding on.
According to the military, most of the city is now in the so-called gray zone. This is when control over the territory constantly shifts from one side to the other and fighting takes place for every building entrance. Sirski also fully understands the complexity of the situation in Pokrovsk. In particular, the commander-in-chief stated that the AFU units and other components of the defense forces continue to carry out their tasks in the Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad agglomeration area, despite the fact that enemy activity remains high in this sector.
Enemy activity remains consistently high, but clear coordination and the strong cohesion of our units help us to resist it. We are working to ensure the continuity of our logistics and are taking measures to disrupt the enemy's supply routes.
Nevertheless, the situation in the Pokrovsk direction remains extremely difficult. The enemy, disregarding their own losses, continues to assault AFU positions, the commander-in-chief shares in his operational update.
In just the past 4 days in the Pokrovsk direction, the occupiers' total losses amounted to 487 personnel, of which 350 were irrecoverable. The exchange fund is being replenished with captured Russian soldiers.
For security reasons, the Ukrainian command does not disclose further details about the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. However, they can share information about completed special operations on the front line. For example, the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirilo Budanov, gave an interview in which he shared details of one of the most daring airborne operations by the GUR, during which special forces, having secured certain positions behind enemy lines, managed to break through and establish a full-fledged ground corridor. At that time, Budanov himself was nearby and was directing the operation.
Why was such an operation necessary, and why did it have to be carried out in exactly this way? Because the situation was extremely tense and critical, I want to remind you that all of this happened against the backdrop of official statements from the Russian Federation about the capture of the city. When Gerasimov reported to Putin that the city had been taken, and here you need to understand what the situation was like at that moment. Nothing else would have worked. What we did allowed us to win precious time so that the main units of the armed forces could calmly, or as calmly as possible, approach the city to reinforce it. Let's put it that way.
It is quite possible that even at this very moment, special units of the GUAR are carrying out another special operation in the Pokrovsk direction. Military public channels are already reporting on the clearing of Pokrovsk, strikes on enemy supply lines, and the establishment of alternative logistics routes now for the Ukrainian armed forces. So all we can do is wait for official confirmation of good news from the Ukrainian command.
Meanwhile, Russia is rapidly plunging into darkness and cold. Now, every shelling of Ukraine's energy facilities immediately results in mirrored retaliatory strikes. If earlier Ukrainians mainly used drones, now they are deploying their own long-range Flamingo and Neptune missiles. In addition, missiles provided by partners are also performing excellently. For example, the American ATAK-MS. Russian soldiers themselves witnessed their effectiveness firsthand the other day at their own facilities in Voronezh. We will tell you how the war has now reached the territory of these would-be conquerors.
Ukrainian long-range drones are cutting off electricity in the occupied Donbas.
And short charge your phones. Looks like they've decided to cut our power everywhere. I've already counted more than 30 of them.
And Ukrainian cruise missiles are temporarily halting the sale of Russian oil at the port of Novorossiysk, causing significant disruption. Ukraine's defense industry is developing rapidly. Kyiv is ramping up its ability to strike deep into Russian territory.
No way. To be honest, seriously.
Look, please. Okay?
Where did we end up? What an incredible ride that was. Damn, do you see that over there?
That's Belgorod. Basically, there's absolutely no power anywhere at all in Belgorod at this time. The entire region is completely without electricity.
The only argument in any negotiations or agreements with the aggressor is a powerful Ukrainian army and large-scale domestic production of long-range strike capabilities.
In order to somehow bring this war to a stalemate, yes, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to suppress their logistics and their air force. That's why it became necessary. And I'm not even mentioning the need to strike at enterprises of the military-industrial complex and the energy system of Russia.
For strikes on the occupiers' military targets in the occupied territories, as well as in Russia's border regions, long-range and rocket drones such as BARS, Palyanitsia, Peklo, FP-1, FP-2 and Luti are mainly used. The scale of strike drone production in Ukraine is such that Russia, including Moscow, is visited by hundreds of drones almost daily. In addition to drones, Ukraine has established the production of its own cruise missiles. We're talking about the long-range Neptune, with an increased range of up to 1,000 kilometers and a warhead of about 260 kilograms. And of course the Flamingo, with a strike range of up to 3,000 kilometers and a warhead weighing 1,000 kilograms.
Usually the warhead of a modern cruise missile is 450, well, at most 500 kilograms. As a rule, almost all missiles have a warhead of 450 kilograms. What does a 1-ton warhead provide? When hitting a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles will completely disable it for at least a year. That is, there will be a single crater about 20 meters in diameter.
From time to time, Western allies' weapons are used in strikes on military targets. The British-French Storm Shadow missiles, as well as American ATAK-MS, which the Ukrainian armed forces recently used to strike Voronezh. Guys, we're being bombed. We're being bombed. Recently, Russian energy infrastructure facilities have increasingly come under the crosshairs of the Ukrainian armed forces. By cutting off electricity to Ukrainians, Putin is dooming Russians to blackouts.
Given the climatic conditions of the Russian Federation and the tactical and technical characteristics of the Ukrainian side's strike capabilities, Russia is facing a harsh winter, both literally and figuratively. First and foremost, these are thermal power plants and other production facilities that sustain the livelihoods of major Russian cities.